For those of you guys who are not familiar, this is a partnership we have with Shopify. Tonight it's being sponsored by Fermat. If you guys are in the Shopify ecosystem, as I assume you are, and you're launching storefronts, running ads, Fermat is a micro store experience specifically for paid media. We've been using it with our clients. It's been very successful. So check it out. It's relatively new in the Gen AI space, and it's been doing wonders for our portfolio. Getting back to office hours, we're putting this event on for you guys. This is really meant to be tactical and useful information. We're bringing together founders from fast-growing brands in the New York City ecosystem. And we're just going to talk and answer relevant questions that are going to be helpful for your growth. So just by a show of hands here, how many of you guys are founders? Okay, nice. How many of you guys are founders still kind of working up to that $1 million annual revenue mark? So below $1 million. Okay, nice. How many of you guys are building fashion businesses? Okay, all right. So we have the right people here then. For those of you guys who don't know me, I'm the co-founder and CEO of Darkroom. We're a growth agency in New York City. We're about 8 people in New York and LA. We work with fast-growing brands in the Shopify ecosystem, and we invest in those businesses too. We invest mostly in commerce technology businesses and consumer brands. And then we also assist on their data analytics and growth. Today, we're going to be talking about strategies and tools to drive brand growth. The way I'm going to structure the conversation, we're going to start with strategy. So a lot of strategic growth type questions, stuff that's going to be relevant for you. And then we'll talk about tools. I'm going to guide most of the discussion. I've got a few curated questions for this incredible panel tonight. And then I'm going to open it up for basically an AMA, and you guys can ask whatever you want based on our discussion. So I'm joined here tonight. I'm really excited to have Brandon, who was actually at the last event, and we have Dae as well, and Ali. So I'm gonna ask them to introduce themselves. Dae is the founder and creative director of Sundae School. Dae, would love for you to just describe the brand and your mission and what you've been building.
Hello. 안녕하세요. I'm Korean, so saying hello in Korean. My name is Dae. I run a brand called Sundae School. We make high quality goods for high-minded people. We sell weed, and we also sell clothes. We sell weed in around 200 dispensaries in California, and we sell clothes. We call them smokewear through our Shopify store, and we are about to launch in retail.
Awesome, Dae. Thanks so much. And yeah, guys, just pass around the mic. We've got Brandon next. I've known Brandon actually for a little while. Excited to have you. He's the founder and CEO of Le Alfré. It's a menswear line that's mostly direct-to-consumer right now. Brandon, I'll let you introduce yourself, talk about the business.
Yeah, my name's Brandon, founder and CEO of Le Alfré. Started the company last year, and we've grown to different collections, different kind of retail shops around the U.S. But like Lucas said, we're mostly direct-to-consumer, and we just opened our showroom in Nomad not too long ago on 27th and Broadway. So yeah, that's us.
I love it. We have Ali as well, last but not least. Ali was really early at Lively, scaled that business, then worked at Hatch, 2 apparel businesses, and is recently the founder of Overlunch. So I will let you introduce yourself, Ali. Thanks so much.
Hi, guys. I'm Ali. Like we talked about, I was first hire at Lively, bra and undies D2C brand, disruptor in the category in 2016. Really led everything that fell under organic brand building and marketing. It was an amazing, really fast-paced growth. They got acquired after 3.5 years. And so those 3.5 years that I was there was really kind of jam-packed with a lot of sort of startup D2C boot camp. Went over to a brand called Hatch, and now run my consultancy Overlunch, brand strategy and marketing, advisory, and podcast production.
Thank you, Ali. Thanks, guys, so much. So, I mean, this panel is really relevant to everyone here. Like, most of them are growing their business. They're in the trenches. It's a lot of hand-to-hand combat. They're full-time on their businesses. So I've curated a list of questions that seek to kind of, answer what does it take to build a brand in 2023? What does it take to build a fashion business? What does it take to get from 0 to $1 million in revenue? They're all going to speak to that tonight. And then we'll also talk about some of the tools that can help you guys out. The obvious one's Shopify. So if you don't know what it is, Look it up. So let's start with question number one. This is going to be for all three of these guys. Building a community has been crucial for each of your businesses. How has your approach to community changed over time? Dae, let's start with you, then we'll go to Ali, and then Brandon.
So, in all honesty, I really never meant to start a brand. I was high at home, and I was in Seoul, and I was like, oh, what if God was high and created this world, and that's called Sunday school? And it was a really silly idea. But most importantly, after that, I used some Photoshop skills that I learned over years to make some T-shirts and hoodies. And, for me, I always really like to think of things iteratively. Even if it's not perfect, I just try to get it out there, because even though you may think it's perfect and you put it out there, I will tell you it's definitely not perfect. So community has been such a great feedback loop for that. So even when I first launched, I was like, what should I call this brand? And the first event was at this cafe called Greekologies. And I asked them, oh, should we sell weed? Just getting feedback as much as possible. I actually think the approach...
At that point, was it a brand yet? You just hosted a Sunday school event?
Yeah, we didn't have a Shopify store. Yeah.
No Shopify, not selling anything.
Yeah, no.
You're just like, let's throw a party.
Yeah, it was just let me print some T-shirts and let me try to get it to as many people as possible. And somehow a Vogue writer came by and a Hypebeast writer came by, and then they wrote it up. They were like, what the fuck is this? And then we got into Barney's. It just all happened so quickly. But in terms of building community, our approach to community hasn't changed at all, I think. Still, who the Sunday school customer is. The archetypes that I set back in 2018 is still relevant. Now we have new archetypes as well, and we have really funny names for them. But, I think for us, what's really important is you don't have to buy anything from us, what's really important is we want you to take life less seriously. And that is kind of reflected in the pieces that we make, that is reflected in the content that we make. But what's just important is we want to honor, our heritage as, Koreans, but also, building up that what Asian American identity means, and then beyond that, what a cannabis consumer means in 2023 and beyond. So, yeah, it's just all about discussions. It's all about learning. It's all about higher education.
So let's double click on a couple of things that you said. So how large is the community? You have a couple thousand people. What does that look like? And it sounds like there's some crossover. Asian Americans, people who smoke, people who like fashion too.
Yeah, I think I don't know how to measure it, but we just had a pop-up in New York for 3 days. We rented this. We collabed with Mr. Softy, and we collabed with Heist Nabaidi, this magazine, and we drove around this truck for 3 days, and basically, we're giving out free ice creams, and 4,000 people showed up to wait in line for 2.5. Even if it was a Balenciaga truck, I would not wait 2.5 hours for it. You know what I mean? But I think that was when I was oh shit, I need to launch our cannabis products in New York ASAP. But then I think on IG that we get around 50 to 60 DMs a day, and we have around 120K followers or so. But they're our ride or die, when people try to spread wrong information, and when we discuss it, they will fight for us, and we will fight for them. You know what I mean? It's that sort of a relationship. And then on TikTok, we've seen a lot of growth. And then our customers, our order volume has been increasing quite a bit.
She's on TikTok right now.
Yeah. And I think for us, it's really just about authentic community building approach. Community now, I feel is such a buzzword. Everyone's oh, community this, community that. And I'm it's not that hard. And it's not it's only hard when you're trying to force it into an angle. If you just take a very natural approach and don't go too broad, because you can't form interest groups based on really broad interests. That's not going to have that much loyalty. So, for us, we're as niche as you can get. Korean weed brand. So we just stay true to that message, and, if we want to talk about things that we don't have the full information about, we work with different experts and different collaborators in order to share those stories. So like kind of knowing your lane and really just delving deep has been our approach, and that will continue to be our approach.
I like that. Lot in there. For those of you guys who are at Office Hours 1, we just focused on community. A lot of similarities with what Dae's describing. Ali, how do you approach this question?
I mean, to be honest, community is at the root of all of the work that I do, and I feel like I learned the power of community with the early days of Lively. It was 2016. As Dae said, it was before a time where community was such a buzzword, and it came in such an organic, authentic way. We rolled out social, again, when Instagram was a very different beast. It was, the algorithm wasn't driving it the way that it is now. And so we had sort of a landing page of our Instagram grid, and it really was ethos first. It was not product. It was very vague what the product was that we were going to be launching. It was still pre-launch. And to roll that out and wake up to, and again, early startup days, scrappy, I'm the one doing it, and, late night posting, and wake up to DMs sort of flooding in from women around the country, discovering this somehow, and talking about how much that ethos was resonating with them. It was, entrepreneurial, but also free-spirited, and I feel super seen, or I've never seen, I always feel like I have to choose one or the other. And so, again, to Dae's point, the idea that, we came in sort of authentically finding this niche that we felt like was our persona and really was that driver. The community power was really leaning into those initial people that felt connected to what we were doing and starting conversations with them, jumping on calls, really nurturing those relationships. And those people sort of helped us shape the blueprint of what we were going to do to build sort of brick by brick with our community. And so that two-way dialogue was always there. We looked to them to see where we should be, who we should be popping up with. And community events were, again, small and scrappy and in New York because we were here and we could do it. But we had 125 community-based events our first year.
And with those, did you just focus on density? Let's just go deep on New York City.
I mean, to be honest, it was. I know we'll talk about this, but budget first. It was we can jump in a cab and pop into a collaborator, a brand partner that already has a space, and we can do sort of a mixer and showcase what we do, but really have people get to know us. And so, things like Soul Cycle or The Sill or things that were kind of buzzy, Heyday, things that were happening in the city that we knew our community really loved doing when they weren't, shopping for our category.
So there's a Venn diagram there. It's people you have connections with that you can kind of lean on to provide services in kind really to help out the brand. But then it's also the businesses that have direct relationship to your product. There's a brand overlap.
Yeah.
Dae, I'm curious with, you mentioned High Snobiety, Mr. Softy, could you have done that on day one? Is that just because they know your business now, or, are those relationships that you've had?
You can't do that on day one. But what you can do is literally what Ali said, lean on your network, lean on, your community, beyond just as a business, right? But we were lucky. I think because we are so niche. Even though I didn't know many people, I could just easily reach out. Tim over there, he is in our team, but he's one of the first people that I reached out to, being like, "Oh, you're a Korean founder. I would love to chat with you and learn about this." So I think that's been something that was really great for us.
Brandon, you can speak on this too because you've done a ton of stuff in New York. It's been very dense, and you've relied on relationships too. Can you speak more on this?
Yeah. First off, I would say your community doesn't change. I think the thing that you have to consider and understand is that it's your brand that facilitates the community, right? If what people are attracted to, what makes people want to buy the product, DM you, ask about, your events, DM you 50, 60 times a day, it's the brand and the persona and the archetypes that you're building and the experience that you're creating for those people. So a lot of people, I think about community as, all right, who's my community? No, you should think about in this perspective of what's your brand, and then people will be attracted to that brand, and that's your community. So you shouldn't, I think of, all right, this is my community. I'm dead set on all these people trying to force them into what I'm building. If you're building what you're authentically creating, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be attracted to that. So I think that's kind of like the underlying theme of community.
So I'm just curious for both of you guys, and to the extent I don't know the founder of Lively, how you obviously worked in finance, and your brand like speaks to that consumer. I'm assuming you smoke weed. You're South Korean. Would you describe yourselves as your brand, like the archetype?
I would, but also you have to start somewhere where I think that's also this kind of nuance and kind of vague gray area of, yes, I worked in finance, the brand's only for people in finance. Absolutely not, right? Like, he has a Korean brand that smokes weed. Do you have to be Korean and do you have to smoke weed? Absolutely not. So these are just like the basis of who the underlying kind of culture is of the brand that you can extend and understand just different ways of packaging and marketing that, still people are going to, enjoy.
Yeah, it's a really good point. It also helps when you niche down and like you go deep on something and it naturally resonates with a population and they become your beachhead. Go ahead.
I think there is like one singular kind of word that I describe to address our community, and I think it is beyond. You don't have to be Korean, and you don't have to smoke weed. And actually, a lot of people don't smoke weed. A lot of people are not Korean, but they're all high achieving degenerates. That's what we call them. You work hard, but you also chill hard. And even beyond marketing, right? Because marketing is just marketing. If you don't have a product, you can't really market anything. Even in our products, like these pants I'm wearing, they have elastic in the back so that when I will munch a few hours later, even though my underbelly will grow, it'll still fit me perfectly. So for us, like we really pay attention to those details. And I mean, yeah, sometimes I want to make like really slay pants out of leather that are skin tight, but like that's not the brand. I should just buy that somewhere else. You know what I mean? So really staying true to your messaging and what your kind of community overarchingly wants. I think that focus is what's really hard, especially when you first start the business, because you don't know what people want and you don't know, you may think something, but most times it's not true. So the only way to address this is to talk to your customers, talk to your potential customers, and talk to people, who you don't even know, to just gather information.
This was awesome. You guys have anything else to say on community? Let's go to the next one. Brandon, this one's for you. And I think this kind of really ties in well with like facilitating and building community, because nowadays you don't need yes, the events are really important, and we can talk about the importance of in real life events because they do stimulate community in an important way. But you can build very publicly on social platforms that connect you with people who have similar interests. Brandon's been building Le Alfré very publicly. You have how many followers on TikTok?
Like 26,000.
So, but like just as a founder, just like posting.
So I've been, I started this basically without knowing anything. Similar to Dae, I didn't know I was going to start a clothing brand. So everything was basically new to me. So as I was going through all of these challenges, obstacles, fuck ups, however you want to call them, I think as a founder, especially in these early stages, you kind of have to build your brand through who you are as an individual, because that's, I think, the most interesting aspect of what, community is in a sense, right? Like, and it's the easiest form of getting people to buy into what you're building, right? If I just created a brand with a product and tried to market to you, that's far less interesting than you saying, oh, well, this guy quit his job, at 23, started from scratch, went to Portugal, found factories, and you're actually looking at all of these videos and pictures and mistakes and kind of ideas that this guy has actually starting the brand. So the latter is much more engaging and it kind of gets you more involved.
Yeah, so there's like a degree of storytelling in there, but you're just like documenting the process, which I think is really important for everyone here to understand, because I met Brandon before, Le Alfré started blowing up and becoming popular, watched the entire journey. And, we talk about all of these strategies, they're really important, but like there is an element of capital that's needed to be successful and launch a business. Brandon's about to close his seed round, and I imagine a lot of that was due to building in public. So just speak on that.
Yeah, I mean, I actually, we've been raising money for the last 6 months, and about, I'd say a quarter to a third of that investment has come through TikTok, of just me posting and building the company in public. Because people are understanding, what I'm actually doing, how I'm thinking through things, how I operate, how I fucking grind all the time. And so people are actually seeing that. And so, yeah, TikTok is something, and I don't even just do TikTok. I'm building publicly on LinkedIn. And the voice that I have on LinkedIn is different than the voice I have on TikTok. And then it's a different,
I like LinkedIn as a channel for brands.
Yeah,
I really
LinkedIn.
do.
If you guys don't market on LinkedIn your personal brand organically, you should.
I like that
because it's very underrated as a marketing channel.
Well, Dae, hold up. You did work in consulting. There is like a corporate guy underneath all of that.
I haven't updated my LinkedIn since I left consulting. I haven't updated my resume since I graduated from college, actually. Yeah.
So this one's for you, Dae. So I think everyone's kind of wondering, cannabis and fashion, how do those two things go together? I mean, I think I guess you did you launch with the intention? You said no. How did that happen?
Yeah, it's probably like a what the fuck, right? Cannabis, fashion, Korean, Asian, American, it seems all buzzy. But it honestly started out with a story. To echo Brandon's point, I think people are obsessed with reality shows, right? Love is Blind. I've just finished that. I don't like this season, but I still finished it. And I feel like there's almost once you buy into a brand and once you buy into a personal story, you're even more hooked. You're like, oh my gosh, what are they gonna do next? So for us, I just was like, oh, what if God is high, and made some T-shirts. But then somehow we got an opportunity by Hypebeast to showcase in New York Fashion Week, and they were like, oh, but you have to whip out ready to wear. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is that? But I did. And we got into some wholesale accounts, and then from there on, we started asking people, hey, what do you guys want, on Instagram. Polls had just launched when that happened. So I was like, should we make knit vests or should we make, more pants? And they were like, just drop ounces, drop eighths. And I was like, oof. But we didn't do that because we don't have a farm and I'm not a farmer. So I can't authentically tell that story. So we were like, what can we make? And we decided to make gummies because I love gummies. I actually prefer gummies because of just the incline and, you never know what's happening. And I love that adventure. And my favorite snack still to this day is duck, which is rice cake. And we launched our mochi gummies made out of rice flour and tapioca. And yeah, we did it in flavors that are authentic to our childhood, like yuzu. In Korea, we call it yuja. Boba. I used to get boba every after real Sunday school, or after Sunday school. I used to get boba at Gongcha. So from that memory, we created those flavors. Yeah, and then it all happened really naturally. In the beginning, people used to laugh at us. Oh my gosh, what do you know about cannabis? I remember I went to go pitch MedMen, and I was so excited. And they were like, but you guys are in Barney's. You don't know anything about weed. And then I was like, what do you know about weed? You just started working here. We obviously didn't get into MedMen. But now we're in.
For the best.
now we're in all the stores, and we are constantly stocked there.
So like paint a picture of the business today. Do you treat it as like two separate businesses with like same marketing strategy? Because they're obviously two totally different supply chains, different skill sets, different inventory planning, the whole thing. So how do you manage that?
Yeah, so we are about to launch in a few new states this year, but the brand is strong enough that I have licensing deals like incoming for the first time. And it was never like this. I used to always go chase and convince people. But then now they're like, oh my gosh, we have a huge population of, artsy millennial kids. Like, can we get your brand out here? So in terms of marketing, it's pretty streamlined because it's all about content, whether it's photo shoots, whether it's video shoots. We have like we're still developing that TikTok formula. We leave some for like trends. We leave some for like tea time to just kind of spill the tea on stuff. But we always make sure to have weed content in our portfolio, whether it's like ASMR content, whether it's like, talking about the stigma. We talk about clothes. We talk about Korean heritage and how our clothes are inspired by it. So yeah, basically in terms of digital marketing and digital marketing communications, it's the same designers, same content creators working to produce that. Obviously, in terms of operations, it's a whole separate vertical. Besides packaging, you can use the same vendor. Yeah, but
So like for expansion, just to boil it down, expansion on the cannabis side, you're just like, I'm going to leverage the brand, build the brand, and then cut distribution deals or licensing deals in different states.
We know where our customers live.
Yeah,
right?
so it's much lower lift for you. You can basically expand using someone else's infrastructure.
Exactly.
And then you're scaling the fashion side of the business, though.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool. That's good for us. We can understand that. This is for all three of you. Ali, we'll start with you because you have so much experience across multiple fashion businesses. So fashion is a tough space. Obviously, a lot of people here are trying to break into fashion, launch their own businesses. How did you each strategically approach breaking into the market and like selling product? I think now there are a lot of resources to figure out how to make product, but like, how do we get people to buy it? How did you figure that out?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we talked about community and that being kind of where this idea starts and really understanding what might be missing in that landscape. And it was the same for Lively in terms of approach that it was for Hatch. There were these communities that were quite different. One was much younger and one was older, and Hatch is a maternity brand, and so it's just a different kind of stage in life. But it really was about how do we come in to be a resource, to be the go-to, to be the support that this demographic needs, that this community needs at that moment in their lives, and really kind of thinking that through. For me, my approach has always been in that grassroots capacity, in kind of creating that ecosystem of all of these organic kind of levers or moments, whether it be these in real life moments, whether it be having the founder be very present and having these longer form conversations, podcast panels, fireside chats. We talk about the mix of like what happens on the organic side and then what happens in a more sort of performance marketing side. And it really is like, how are you bringing people in and what are they seeing when they get there? And so for me, it's always been about making sure that at all of these touch points, there is an entire ecosystem that somebody can kind of come to and understand all of the facets of what the brand is kind of standing for.
Okay. And Brandon, I guess just take it from Ali and talk about, how you approached breaking in. Was it all organic and content driven, like what Ali's talking about?
So it's all grassroots, but I had someone who started their own company kind of tell me this early on, where it's called kind of boots to the ground. So literally do every possible thing you can do that doesn't require any money. So in the beginning, I would, and this is stupid as hell, right? It sounds stupid, but I bought a picket sign. I would walk around New York and just hold my shirts up, get feedback from people. I had a QR code so people can follow me on Instagram because I didn't have any money to do performance marketing or any paid ads.
So you got like samples made?
Yeah, I had samples. Yeah, samples made. I had a picket sign with a QR code with like a funny thing that said like, we're not in GQ yet, but we can be. Like, follow us on Instagram. And it was front and back. I would strategically go to Trader Joe's and stand in line with the picket sign. No, I'm not kidding. And just like, because I knew if I was like wait in line, people would scan the QR code behind me, right? So I would like always like walk up in front of someone so like they can just see the QR code. But then you start getting like, 100, 200 followers. That's 200 more followers than you had, right? And like that mentality, like you need to have every single time. I don't do that now, but if I needed to, I would. But it's like those kind of stages of, okay, what's like the most effective thing? Because at the beginning, your time is your most valuable asset. You don't have any cash. You don't have any like connections. You can't just like do anything you want. So your time is your resource. So use that time effectively where you can actually grow. So, that was like one strategy. LinkedIn is another strategy. TikTok's another strategy. Like Instagram Reels now that you can go viral. Like there's a million.
So those 200 people who like followed you from that Trader Joe's line, like, are they still? Do you have any tracking on that? They
No.
still followers, but
It doesn't matter. Like 200 is 200. You know, and like at that point, you need as much traction and visibility as you can get. Like
for sure, I'm trying to make the point
yeah.
because I've heard this with so many early stage fashion brands that like you just need to start building, and that creates a snowball effect where these people who are following you when you were nothing, like they become your customers eventually.
Yeah.
Because they have such deep loyalty for the business.
Yeah. Just keep doing. You have to be strategic, right? Like there are a million, and you have to test everything, right? Like that was a little test to see if it would work. LinkedIn was another test. I did ads a little bit in the beginning. That was another test. So kind of do all these little tests to strategically grow.
So I like this point, and we had another discussion at one of our other events about like it's really important to lean into friction. One of our clients, Brunt Workwear, they're fast-growing Shopify business, and they did a podcast, and it became a top 1% Spotify podcast. Fashion brand in the boot space, that's an $100 million company today. How did you guys also lean into friction and do things that were like not best practice for launching a fashion brand?
Well, on the mental note, real quick, I do want to add, every day as a founder, every day, God will test you. And it will feel like there's no tomorrow at that moment. But what you always have to remember is you are that girl. Like you are that girl. You have to really channel that, and you have to push forward, and you have to do shit like wear the QR code and wait in Trader Joe's. You just have to do it. And like that's, I think, one of the most important thing that makes or breaks your project, your company, whatever it is.
You got a story for us when you were that girl?
I'm always that girl. Like I'm that girl right now. Honestly, when I am not, when I'm in a room with people, I'm great, but I'm not the guy to just go out and talk to randos. Like I hate going to bars and hitting on people. Like that's just, I don't know. I can't do it. But for me, I'm like, I got to get this out. I got to get this brand out here. I would go up to random influencers and I'll be like, oh my gosh, like I am this person and I really like your stuff and I feel like you would really like my stuff. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, you're putting yourself out there.
Yeah, you just got to do it. And like, there's no other way around it. You are your best asset, like, okay, but what was the question? Sorry.
Yeah, like give us a story. Like give us something good,
Number one, so I was doing this on the side, 2017 and 2018, because I needed to pay my bills, obviously. I was working at a consulting company, and, basically they're like, even taking that leap of faith to leave my cushy job was not easy, right? And it was right before we got into Barney's, but I was just like, I was like talking to a few people who I could raise money from. Obviously, we couldn't raise any money. They were like, you're not even doing this full time. What are you talking about? You don't believe in it. And I was like, I will just tell you right now, and I'll prove you wrong. Like in a month, we're going to be in Barney's, Saks, all these stores that you shop at. And then he was like, okay, good luck. And then we got in, and you have to manifest. We got in, and I was like, where's my check? And I got that check. Really? So yeah, it's just, and that guy is still like one of my investors. He's great. So I feel like you just have to really take care of yourself and really take care of your mental health aside, like mental strength, have this iron face, do stuff that you would normally never do, and just go for
determination.
It.
Ali, any thoughts on like leaning into friction?
I mean, at Lively, it was an overall very positive environment, and we had this, and I think that starts from the top. We had this idea of like a learning tax, and, you have a team and a startup, a young team, and this idea that like a learning tax was, you're making mistakes all the time, and you're hopefully trying to break something and test something and see what's sticking, what's resonating. And so if something didn't work, if a city wasn't, as buzzy or as kind of picking up momentum that we went into as you'd hoped, it was a learning tax. And whatever spend was there or budget went towards that, or a feeling in the room, like we just kind of chalked it up to, that learning tax of it's okay, and what can we take from this and kind of apply and keep pushing forward, that mental muscle.
Really good thoughts, guys. We've got we're like halfway through with the questions. This is for each of you. Ali, you can start. What was the tipping point when you decided to start your own company? So you were working at a couple of other companies where you were running marketing. When were you like, I'm going to go do my own thing?
It was the end of 2019. I was at, a company in-house that felt very cushy and felt very kind of comfortable, and there's security there. And you can't, I feel like everybody in this room must feel this, where when something is that fire in your belly, when something just feels like where you should be. And I realized that, I went from first hire in-house and building to a company that was 8 years old. And so I feel like that early stage, pre-launch, the grit of those early days of building your business was missing. And so I just knew that I had to kind of follow that feeling. And so I launched a consultancy that would work with primarily female-founded e-com, direct-to-consumer brands. Podcast production ended up becoming a big part of what I do now and what the consultancy focuses on, but really as an extension of brand.
So talk about, are you placing ads for your clients on podcast, or you're producing podcasts for them?
Yeah, producing podcasts.
Interesting. So like that, the example I gave, has it been successful in terms of like driving sales? Like what's the mission behind that?
Yeah, the origin story behind that is that we were having these fireside chats and panels at Lively, and we were having them often. And, there's 50 people, 100 people in a room, and you're getting kind of, again, the community's flooding in with, I wish I was in New York for that chat. This feels like such a valuable thing. And so we look to podcasts in those like early days of podcast as a way to scale these kind of conversations, to like really give back to the community. And so I have come in a number of other podcasts since, at that intersection between podcasts as an extension of brand. What are the bigger conversations that this brand wants to have that they may not be having in these quick snippets on social or in a caption, or, it's been amazing. And so it's an opportunity for a brand to showcase their values, to have longer form narratives and storytelling. And it's obviously like a very buzzy, kind of sexy area to get involved in as a brand or as a sort of personal brand.
What about for you, Dae? What was so both of you guys came from corporate backgrounds, cushy jobs like Ali. When were you like, I'm doing this? And actually, before you answer that, for the audience, how many of you guys like are still in the deciding phase of like going deep on your venture? Just by like a show of hands. So a couple of you. Okay.
Great. Think carefully. So yeah, I'm a little bit of backstory. I studied applied math, not because I love math. I do like numbers, but I don't love math. But I did it because my mom was like, you got to do it. It's either that or biology. And I was like, I'm not about to cut up rats, you know? So I studied applied math. I went into consulting, and it broke me in a lot of ways. I got really interested in healthcare. So I was doing a lot of healthcare consulting, like pharmaceutical products, hospital systems. And then I worked at a pharmaceutical company, and now that case is on Netflix, and that project really, really helped me understand what it means to have professional values besides it being a buzzword, you know? So then I was like, okay, I want to have agency over the work I do, right? But you don't need to start a company to find that, right? You could find that perfect job for you where you can excel at what you do in that organization. But I really think it was based on community, not to be buzzy about it, because when I saw, when I saw just responses from being like, hey, we're doing a community photo shoot, come through. And when we did this ice cream truck thing 2 years ago, right after the first wave of like the pandemic opened up, and I think per day, like 400 people came. And even that, not even that, like that just really was like, oh my gosh, like this is so incredible that 400 people, because like your weekends are so valuable, right? Like who wants to, spend time to wait in line on the weekends? But like that just was such a incredible experience. And because I built this company for 2 years just organically while having a job, it just gave me so much more faith that this is what I have to dedicate my 20s to. And yeah, here I am as a 30-year-old, and there are no regrets.
Happy birthday. Was there like a specific point where you like crossed the revenue threshold and you were like, I'm going to jump in? Or did the community get to a size, or you just had a gut feeling? You were like, I need to do this.
Yeah, I'm like a gut feeling guy. And I always remember that I'm that girl. So, for instance, we just we're about to launch Puffers, which we're super excited about. And I was at the Thundercat concert, and I was like texting with our team being like, oh my gosh, like what do we have to do? What do we have to do? And we were going more conservative, but there was like a great price break that we got if we just made 400 more units. So I was like, these Puffers are that girls. Like we have to make it. We have to take that leap of faith. And then we did some back of the math calculations. Even if I sell it at a discount, I will still make money. So, I just want to get more of our clothes with our stories and our souls in them to our people. So we were like, let's increase that production run. Yeah.
I like that. Brandon, what do you think?
Yeah, very on par with them. I think, like for me, I was working in finance for a year, and it gets to a point where if you don't wake up and you're genuinely enjoying what you're doing, then you should probably switch. And I know that's really fucking difficult, given that a lot of people have responsibility, families, money, etc. But, if you do, I would try and utilize your time and energy to try to create something on the side as much as possible. For me, I was kind of in a weird situation where I left and I was supposed to have another job lined up, and kind of like in this limbo of not having a job. And this is when I kind of got the idea. And if you're doing something, then you better do it. You don't want to you don't want to allocate 20% of your time to it if you're like fully invested in yourself and in your idea.
So before that point, did you know you wanted to launch a company, or you
no,
just had
absolutely not.
You had this break, kind of happenstance?
Yeah, just like nothing going on, and I'm just like searching for jobs, trying to figure out what I want to do next. And again, like when Dae says like you're that girl, you're that guy, like yeah, like I'm that girl, like you honestly have to have that mentality. I'm gonna use that expression now, but yeah, you just got to be super confident in yourself to execute, and then with that, your lifestyle has to change dramatically. Like no more going out. You're eating groceries. Like I'm still doing that. Like I pick and choose what I do, where I go out, how I spend my money, because all of that should be reinvested into your business. And, if you're not willing to sacrifice your lifestyle and what you do and who you spend your time with, then, I wouldn't recommend, starting a company.
Yeah, no, for sure. You need, in some respects, you need to be able to just like lean into the friction and rough it for a few years to reinvest in the business. I think that gets harder as you get older and have more responsibilities and obligations. So it's something to consider if you guys are thinking about going deep in your particular vertical. Okay, so we talked a bit about marketing. I guess we talked more about like starting the venture and grassroots marketing. Fact of the matter is, like, most of the businesses you guys are going to be founding are going to be direct to consumer to some degree, maybe some retail allocation. But a lot of your growth is going to be driven by marketing. There's a bunch of different types of marketing. This one's for Ali. How do you determine where to allocate capital, since it's a scarce resource like time? Yeah. And when to go deep on a particular channel or an initiative? Like, when do you start seeing feedback?
Yeah, I think it goes back to what we were talking about before. And again, those early days, resources are so tight, and you have to think about every dollar. And so the way that we approach it at Lively, and I feel like I've always kind of taken that with me, is that it really was starting with something that felt manageable. Like, we were doing the events here in New York, and we would, kind of create a formula that worked here to be able to do as many as we could. And then we said, okay, where could we go that also didn't cost that much, a drive instead of a flight? So we packed up a SUV and would go to somewhere like Boston or Philly or something and do the same kind of activation there. And,
Were you measuring ROI on the activation by like sales and just cost of the event?
It was such early days that cost of the event, yes, but we saw value in email acquisition in those moments, or follows on social, or, meeting brand ambassadors in person and leveraging those relationships after the fact. And so those days for us really were about almost those intangibles that, but we made sure that there were things built in that we always did capture that email, that maybe we had some swag there from the brand to incentivize signups or to incentivize somebody looking at our brand ambassador program or that kind of thing. And, I kind of think of it like brick by brick. So we would do those sort of pop-in like road shows. And then we started, that showed so much traction that we said, okay, why don't we look at a space that we could take over for a week or 2 weeks in another city and really blow out the activations, have a pop-up, have retail kind of operation during the day, and have events every night where we're bringing in our brand ambassadors locally. We're partnering with local brands that have already cultivated community in that market, in that city, and how do we get in front of those micro communities and do that? And then you start to see this traction pick up, where we did a pop-up in Dallas, and it was exactly that. It was 2 weeks, a full build out, our entire team there, and we, it had such a nice response amongst the community there that we left, and people would say, can't you keep the store open? It really was meant to be a pop-up. We left, and you start to see the lift in the Dallas area, in the surrounding areas, driving to the site in the weeks to follow. I think we were at a 200% lift to online traffic in those areas. And so, those early days, it's really hard. It's more for us, it was the sentiment of what we were building. And then you start to see things actually impacting the bottom line. And then you say, okay, what if we had community retail hubs? So we opened a retail store in New York, and then one in Dallas, and then one in Austin, and one in Boston. These cities that we've already tested in these micro ways, and that we've already.
So when you left Lively, how big were they?
Yeah, so we had 155,000 women in our brand ambassador program. That was from those early DMs pre-launch, those women, those 50 DMs, that was, built upon and built upon and built upon. We had stores, a store in New York, a store in Boston, and a store in Austin. And we were acquired 3.5 years after we launched. And so
It's incredible. And you were there for that entire time. That's unbelievable.
That was a ride.
Dae's just opening a retail location. You just mentioned that to me. And if I remember, you haven't really spent any money on paid acquisition, paid ads.
It's been organic, which is why it's taken longer, for sure. But like
How long have you been working on the project?
5.5 years, yeah. So, but when you don't have money, what are you gonna do? You just gotta go viral. So that's what for us. I think it's less of in terms of allocating capital. Like as Brendan said, like in the beginning, it's time. You can buy time with money, right? But you can't buy. But in some ways, you can buy money with time by just doing the stuff brute force. For us, some things that work right now will not work in the future, but there is a time window that it'll work. Again, like for fleeces and puffers, that's our main seller, or fleeces are our main seller. I hate that I was late in production and I will have to airship these from Korea, but I will, because there's a time window that you have to maximize sales for. Versus like ocean shipping a fleece is like $3 versus air shipping it is like $12. So, and that's just, going to fuel. So I think it's really just you have to really look at what the costs are and then what the projected benefits are and what the different scenarios are and then make those decisions. With paid, we're just starting to test it out, but I don't want to be doing paid like everyone else is doing paid, being like, oh my gosh, let me show you this sweater. Like, no. So, for us, we are just really trying to stay authentic to our voice, work with creators who can, there are people with like huge followings who DM us and who's like, oh, I will do a content for you. We don't even respond because she's not on brand, or he's not on brand. It doesn't matter. Like, sure, she may have 1 million followers, but someone with 20K followers, someone with 5K followers, like who can represent our brand and who will passionately talk about our brand is so much more valuable.
I look at my bank account at least once a day. Like, I'm kind of obsessed with it. Just because, like, you have to be. If money is going out the door, you have to understand what's going out the door, how long you can last that money going out the door. If like probably once or twice a week, I like built like a cash flow model, and it's just like looking at what I'm spending, just projected this month, next month. All right, what's coming in inventory wise? What am I going to spend on advertising, pop-ups? Am I like forecasting like miscellaneous spend because it's Christmas and like I'm going to have, Ubers, when I go back home to Chicago, like from the airport. It's like all these certain things that you have to understand, that to grow a business, you have to understand the business. You don't understand the product and the marketing. You understand the business and the cash flow, because that's what's going to actually make or break whether you can actually market or not. And so like understanding like a simple income statement, like using QuickBooks. If you really need an accountant or like someone to look at your books and like a bookkeeper, hire them, right? Like there are a lot of services out there. There's also, I'm a big YouTube guy. Like I basically started the company on YouTube, just like watching and researching. So, I use YouTube a lot. If I don't know something, I'll watch videos on it, or I'll just do research on Google.
So you guys mentioned some tech that you use that's important. Just as you've been growing, what's been the most useful piece of technology that you've used? Can't say Shopify.
I mean, I think email marketing is big. I use Klaviyo. I think that understanding of acquisition from there are different ways to market in email marketing, where it's post-purchase, when they're in the funnel, after they purchase. You have different segmentations, different audiences. You can segment on how many orders they've had, if they've abandoned cart, if they've browsed their website and haven't purchased. There's a lot of ways that you can facilitate different encounters and engagements that, can be pushy, or also just, on Fridays we send out like cool mood board images just as like a vibe. Because like who doesn't like a vibe on Fridays, right? Yeah. So like this is through email. So you can kind of see your engagement and analytics through that.
I mean, mine is a little bit different. I think in building the consultancy and, historically I think to immerse yourself in the brand in the way that you have to really be an extension of it and do the work alongside the founder and the team and staying connected. Slack has just been essential. I started at the end of 2019, and obviously everything happened around March 2020, and that in-person sort of creative energy and magic that happens in these, my consultancy is called Over Lunch, because these moments of over coffee, over drinks, over lunch, that is where the sort of co-creation and magic has happened for me in my experience with clients and founders. And that's what fuels me. And so Slack for me has just been a really important way to stay connected and to stay immersed in that like real time way. And to the point, there's ways to use it and build culture and build rapport and have channels that are just a vibe and, or hashtag random or hashtag, shopping finds or whatever it is that the team is kind of looking to do. And I love that. And you're able to kind of lean in and be a part of it. So Slack is my go-to.
I don't use a lot of technology, but I think 3 things. I'm just gonna, number 1, very tactical. It's this Shopify app called Cartbright, and it's like a back-in-stock app. Sometimes we just like kind of fake it, and we just put a mock-up up, and we say it's sold out. And then based on like the number of people who are like requesting it to be back on stock, I'm like, okay, I know how much I need to make.
Those are products you've never launched before?
It's just like T-shirts and hoodies that we just Photoshop.
Concept designs?
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool.
Number 2 is Discord for us. We have a pretty big Discord.
All community?
Yeah, just DGen. It's called DGen channel. And it's like 20,000 people or 25,000 people or something like that. And it just kind of runs on itself.
No community managers.
No community managers. Are you
active in there?
I am not active in there, but we have few like fashion team is, and they send them. Oh, what should we make? Haha. What weed are you smoking? So stuff like that. And then 3 is Telegram. Love Telegram.
I am going to skip this question. It's a fun one, but actually, just really quickly, 30 seconds for each of you, because we're at 3 minutes, and I want to make sure we can answer some questions. What's on the horizon?
Puffers.
Podcasts.
Our first fall/winter collection. I'm wearing one of it right now.
Beautiful. Okay, let's do some open Q&A. How do you acquire the funds to invest in the project while you're working your day job and it's still a side project? Who wants to go first?
I can go. Luckily, like I don't have kids or just like any responsibilities, which plays honestly a huge factor. Like it does. I'd be lying if I was saying it wasn't. And I basically just saved. Like I'm the type of person where I genuinely can eat like 5 things from the grocery store, and they're really cheap, and not go out. And I'm just like paying my rent. That's it. That's all I need. And, that's kind of like how I started, and I just like used my savings. It's a tough decision, right? Like spending your own money, being successful on your own dime. You become very frugal very easily, like more than you thought you would. And I'm still like that. Like, so it was just mine. And then once you like start having those, ways that you can organically grow. Also, another strategy that was really helpful early on, more than the fucking QR code thing, was, the Trader Joe's thing. Go on Instagram and DM. Go to your friend's Instagram and add and DM every single person and tell them you're starting this company. I got like 700 followers. It sucked, but I got like 700 followers in like a couple months just by doing that. Constantly. And then obviously you get unfollowed a ton, but I guarantee you like 300 of those people are customers just by doing that.
I mean, for me, it was having that feeling of wanting to do something of my own and build my own thing. Similarly, once making that decision, I said, okay, how much do I need to save to carry me over and bridge the gap of like a 3 to 6 month runway while I'm kind of out there and pounding the pavement and, building a client base. At the same time, while I was still in-house and knowing that I was building that little nest egg, it's just setting, like, it's so easy to get caught up in that day-to-day. And for me, it was like giving importance to setting up a coffee before work, setting up a lunch meeting, setting up drinks after, just reconnecting with my network and allowing that momentum to come. And it ended up being where I really didn't need that much of that nest egg because I was able to just line so much just momentum and almost verbal, like we need to do this together before I left. So I feel like the power of network is huge.
First thing I did when I decided I'm going to leave my job was like quit Equinox, change my hairdresser. Now my haircut used to be like $60. Now it's $8. You just, I'll give you Chinatown. Mian Ting Xing is the place. It's in Elizabeth and Canal. Shout out to Bob. But yeah, I mean, you just gotta, I used to be a Whole Foods girl. Now I'm a Trader Joe's girl. You just gotta change your lifestyle. I think I really do want to echo that sentiment of network. If this is like the right project for you, your people will ride for you. You know what I mean? Like, because not every project will be right for you. I had another silly idea, which was like, I want to make like the bubbles, like soap bubbles, but with glitter. And they were like, oh, that's cool. Good luck. Versus, this, it just happened much more organically. So I think and then I would say like leverage social media beyond, you can make TikToks and YouTube Shorts, but you could also do like OnlyFans. You know what I mean? Like not like that, but like just content. They have like a paid content channel, like building your company. We're about to launch OnlyFans with all the weed we smoke. You know what I mean? And it's grab the money when you can, where you can.
So I think the question is just around like, how do you prioritize and know when to either fundraise or invest in other things? Can you just continue to build community without actually like having the full product category built out? This sounds relevant to both of you too.
If it's free, just build it. But I think, the question, if it is like the authentic lifestyle that you embody, right? It's not going to be that hard for you to continue it. If it's something that, I see like videos of influencers going on fake private jets and stuff. Like if it's like that, that's going to cost you money and you'll run out of money. I think at this day and age, getting eyeballs and getting engagement is key. But rather than just staying like, if it's an aspirational thing, rather than just staying aspirational, making people really feel something, is really important. So I would say if you don't have a clear concept in mind, don't rush into it. Just keep doing what you're doing. But if you are like, this is going to work, then start testing it out to the eyeballs you have.
Yeah, I think it's different for every single founder in terms of like when to make that next step. But if the question is, can I validate the concept on like Instagram? You for sure can before you actually invest in like tons of product. They referenced, creating surveys and polls to figure out what people want. There's been tons of different brands that have come out of like literal Instagram mood boards or TikTok channels. So I think that's a viable way to grow. So the question was, how do you go through and organize content ideation and, figure out the cadence and the type of content to post? I don't.
No, I mean, I'm just trying to think because it's so different. It's so like complex of a question just because there's different collections that you have, fall, winter, spring, summer. You might be doing a limited edition drop with like a person or a company. And so that content, I think I would focus on what specifically is your end goal for that month or for that quarter. So if you want more emails, what is your strategy in terms of content to get more emails? If you want more TikTok followers, what's your strategy? And it's like, it has to be authentic to you and like what your stage is. Like if if you're just starting out, like film like you starting out, right? Like don't try to force you being this big brand because you're just not there yet. And that content is going to correlate with your stage.
I actually just did this exercise, so I have some tactical points. But number one, it really depends on your personality. I don't know if people know what MBTI is, but my MBTI type is ENTP, so I'm chaos. So basically, how I kind of organized it, number one, you don't need to make content for the sake of making content. People don't want to hear random shit from you. You should just make content for things that you can speak confidently and you can speak with expertise about. So for us, that was really regarding Korean heritage, weed, API culture, and just, eating food and gaining weight, whatnot. So we bucketed those ideas. We did it as topics, formats, and channels, and then made mind maps, and then we're doing some testing to see which one performs best, and then develop franchises based off of that.
Tipping point of success. What strategy led you to be successful? Where were you like, this is it, this is working?
I mean, in my own business, I feel like I originally thought that my entire career sort of background was going to be the crux of my consultancy and brand strategy and marketing. And podcast happened to be coming up a lot for people and for brands. And you lean into kind of what is presenting itself and showing itself. And it was something that I felt also embodied what I wanted to be working on. And so for me, it really was this idea that it doesn't necessarily have to be everything that you thought it was going to be, but going through these motions and putting, your expertise out there and seeing what comes back felt like, if this is where, there's so much opportunity and you're able to play in that space, lean in and see, what that could become. And so in a very real way, I'm now thinking about what does it look like to build out a podcast production studio as opposed to a brand consultancy and podcast studio. So I really think it's, kind of seeing where those opportunities are.
You guys can ask questions too at the end of this. You can speak directly to these guys. I'm going to wrap us up right now. If you really like this session, we're going to do a lot more of this. But I want to just say, if you're launching a startup, we have a ton of different courses at Darkroom, so you can sign up. They're free right now. It's about launching fashion brands, things like that. So the URL is darkroomagency.com/university-beta. And you'll also get all of the office hours, night school programming. So we're going to do this stuff monthly in New York. But thank you guys so much for coming out. We're going to do more fashion stuff too. So just sign up, follow us on Instagram, Darkroom Agency. Thanks Shopify for the space. You guys can ask, do you have a couple minutes to stay? And yeah, you can walk up directly, ask questions. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Lucas.